Hi, everyone. If you're watching on YouTube, this is the second stream of three that we'll be doing today. And this is we're going to be working with Nick Justishin from Drexel University. We're talking about Unreal. And what we've been doing is Metahuman. We started off with, oops, sorry there. We started off last week talking, well, we started 2 weeks ago with Nick showing what he did for with the fellowship. Last week, we talked about Metahuman and playing with it and putting it together. And today we're going to talk about how to get it out of Metahuman and into Unreal. So, Nick, I'll go ahead and let you take it away.
Cool. It's if you're joining in Zoom, hopefully you'll be able to see a Makana link, with Makana being the system for entering in questions. As I'm looking at Makana right now, it says that new questions are just opened.
Yeah.
Great.
Just opened. I was like,
there we go.
Oh yeah.
Just
so let's
now.
do it. So yeah, if you have questions, make sure to jump into Makana and ask those questions. And if you can't find it, go into the chat and say I can't find it. But we should still have some links there for you. But go ahead and use Makana to ask questions. And for everyone who's watching, also know that you can become part of the panel. If you want to raise your hand and show things and actually talk about them, you can do that now, but otherwise we'll get into the discussion. But definitely feel free to throw questions in. The goal is to go nice and slow and figure this all out.
Yeah. So speaking of nice and slow, the process of bringing a metahuman into Unreal Engine currently, for the very first time, will take about a half an hour or more. So if you start at the stage where you've designed your human in the Metahuman Creator website, the big trick is to now get that into an Unreal Engine project, so then you can actually manipulate it and use it for previs. And so that's what we're really focusing on our conversation today. And I did just post to my YouTube channel a video called "What to Expect When You're Expecting a Metahuman," and so that is available as a reference, and we're basically going to walk through that because that lets me I have it essentially as a pre-canned demo for our session today, and I can kind of share my screen, giving you kind of an overview of that and addressing any questions. Now, I'm not able to share my screen yet because the host hasn't given me that privilege. And it looks like Ken Jordan, by the way, is raising his hand to be added to the panelist.
So Tony, if you can, you have Tony, why don't you make a couple of us co-hosts as well?
I got it.
Okay, great.
And all right, so I'll share my screen. And so this is actually just my Camtasia view of the video that's posted to YouTube. And we'll get links to the videos and such later on. But it starts out with the idea that you're created a metahuman in Metahuman Creator, and it goes through, the video itself is a little over 20 minutes long, which is really long for my channel, but it goes through all the different errors and messages. I do skip through the waiting, so anytime this video gets into a waiting mode, I just show a real-time clock so you can get a sense of how much time is actually passing during this. But I just wanted to share that exists, and maybe someone is able to go over to my Pixel Prof channel and copy that link. It's just the newest video that went up there, so that folks can have that link to refer to later on. But essentially, you start out in Metahuman Creator, which is a website interface only. And once you get to the stage that you've created your metahuman, then you need to use some software on your computer to bring it onto an Unreal Engine project. And so one of those tools, of course, is Unreal Engine itself. And so that involves installing from the unrealengine.com website. There's two different versions of Unreal Engine in terms of licensing that you can choose from. And there's one that's on the right-hand side of the download page. It's called the Creator license, free to use. So that's the one that you'll want to install. And that installer then gives you this Epic launcher that lets you run Unreal Engine. So once you have Unreal Engine installed, you'll click the launch button for the version you want to use, and that fires up Unreal Engine Editor, and you'll have the option of creating a new project. And so you'll create a new project. In this case, I chose the film and television live event template for that because that has most of the plugins that we would use for virtual production and previs type of work rather than creating a video game. And then when that finishes, I chose in this particular setup none of the starter content, and I also disabled ray tracing and gave my project a name. In this case, it was Metahuman Demo. And then Unreal Engine went through the process of creating that project. So that took about a minute or so to generate a brand new project. Understand that Unreal Engine is a development platform. It's not just a graphics program. And so it is really verbose when it's creating messages. So, it might be surprising that the first time you open it with a new project, you've already gotten a few messages. It's okay. That happens. For the new plugins being available, you can dismiss that. And the project is out of date. That's okay. Just click the update button and you're good to go.
And for one of our co-hosts, can you bring Ken Jordan in? He's got his hand up.
So that gets you your brand new project in Unreal Engine. So you've installed Unreal Engine and you've created a new project. So this project is ready to receive a Metahuman so that, we could do our previs work in here and pose and things like that. So in the newest version of Unreal Engine coming, version 5, the ability to import metahumans should be built in. There's a tool called Quixel Bridge that does that work, but we're still in version 4 right now. Version 5 has not been officially released. There's just a pre-released version floating out there. And so we're really focusing on using production versions right now. And so Unreal 4.2.7 is like the latest, greatest production version of Unreal Engine. And that doesn't have Bridge built in. So you'll need to go to Quixel.com and install this tool called Quixel Bridge. And this tool is basically the interface for version 4 of Unreal Engine between the Metahuman Creator website and the Unreal Engine project itself. So this Quixel Bridge tool is able to connect to the website and trigger it to generate the files you need and bring them onto your computer. And this process here.
And where do you need to do that to download that?
So to download that, you would go to the Quixel website. So it's Quixel.com/bridge. So the main Quixel website looks like this, and it's all happy to tell you that, hey, go ahead.
Do you need to sign in as with the same login that you had with Unreal?
So on the Quixel website, you don't necessarily need to sign in because the download is free. You would just go to products and then choose Bridge and choose download Bridge. But then once you've downloaded Bridge and you run that program on your computer, and that looks like this, there's a little login button in the upper right-hand corner of that you do have to log in with exactly the same login credentials that you use to get into the Metahuman Creator website. That's what makes this your interface to your metahumans. So once you're running Bridge on your computer, on the left-hand side, there's a link or a section really for metahumans. So as long as you're logged in with the same account that you use to create your metahuman, you can go to the metahumans panel. When you open that up, by default, you'll see all the preset metahumans that were created by Epic, but then you can choose your My Metahumans option, and that'll show you the metahumans that you've personally created on Metahuman Creator. So this is kind of browsing the content that you've created on your Metahuman Creator account. So this has options for downloading and exporting your metahuman. So you would download from Metahuman Creator, and then you export it from Bridge into Unreal Engine. Now, there's a couple settings that you'll want to make sure that you set up in the Quixel Bridge. There's a little cogwheel here in the lower portion of the right panel. And when you click on that, the download settings, there's two options when you click on that cogwheel. There's download settings and export settings. I always go into the download settings and then click on models. And because I'm a Maya user as well as an Unreal Engine user, I make sure that my Metahumans option is set to UAsset plus source assets. The source assets are actually the Maya project assets that actually create Metahumans. So I want that. If you are not a Maya user, there's no reason to have source asset selected. By default, Metahumans is set to UAsset only, and that's what you need for Unreal Engine. So you can always check that setting. If you choose just UAsset, here's all the options. There's UAsset, source asset, and both of those things. I usually have both of them, so I get both. But you could choose UAsset, and then your downloads will take less time because it doesn't have to generate the files for Maya, and it doesn't have to download the files for Maya. So with the download settings ready to go, I also want to set up my export settings so that Bridge knows which copy of Unreal Engine to use, where's the plugin, etc. So we click on that cogwheel again, and instead of download settings, we choose export settings. And in there, you want to make sure that you have export target Unreal Engine selected. And if you were to click this drop-down control, there's lots of options. You can export to Maya, you can export to, I think there's Cinema 4D, and all these different content creation tools. But with Unreal Engine selected, you want to make sure you have the correct version, whatever version you're using. In this particular demo, I was using 4.2.7. And then you kind of point out where that version is installed. And for me, it's C program files, Epic Games, 4.2.7 engine plugins, so that Bridge will know where to install the plugin. You can see that at this stage, once I had selected that, the plugin wasn't there yet, and I had to click on the install plugin button to actually add the Quixel Bridge plugin to Unreal Engine. And clicked on that. It basically installs instantly. It's a quick file copy. Go ahead, Leland.
Just a quick question, Nick. I'm right about where you're at, but I'm not seeing, where did you get the export settings from? I'm in my latest Metahuman in Quixel Bridge, but I don't see where you got to that menu off to the side again.
So click on one of your Metahumans to select them.
Yep.
And then you'll get this panel on the side.
Yep. Got it.
And then there's a little cogwheel.
Oh, there it is.
Down
okay. I see
at the
it
bottom of that panel.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. When you first, yeah, definitely. That's why we're here. When you first open Bridge, that panel's not showing. It doesn't show until you click on one of your Metahumans. And once you've done that, it loads up that panel, and that's where that cogwheel and all of that are set up for. So there is yet another step, because I did install.
And you said that all of this is like, as we walk through all these steps, you said in 5.0, this is all going to just be built in.
Correct. So I mean, that's one of the things about the Quixel site is showing you right here. They're all happy to tell you that Bridge in Unreal 5 early access. So Bridge, this whole thing is built into Unreal Engine 5. So, it was only really a year or two ago that Epic acquired Quixel. It used to be a 100% separate copy or separate company from Epic. And it was really just in the last year or two that Epic acquired Quixel. And so they've been working through the process of increasingly integrating those tool sets. And so when Unreal Engine 5 is released, and I mean, you can get the early access and it's built in, but once this is production ready, then it, might be good to switch over to Unreal Engine 5, but it's not a production ready tool yet. And so for the moment, I personally stick to version 4 and go through this step-by-step process. And that being a step-by-step process, one of the things to note is, I went ahead and I clicked the install plugin here, and it reports that it's installed, but I was already running Unreal Engine. I had created my new project. And so with Unreal Engine running in the background, it hadn't loaded the newly added plugin. So Megascans usually appears right here in the middle as a big green button, and it isn't loaded because I was already running Unreal Engine. So I wanted to make sure that I went ahead and I closed Unreal Engine and then reopened my project. So I went into the launcher, clicked on library, double clicked my MetaHuman demo.
And do you know where on the Mac it should I'm trying to do this on I've decided to try to do it on the Mac because I think I'm a masochist.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to
It'll be where all your applications are.
Right. And then I go into Unreal Engine and then go into plugins and then
correct.
And then just leave it there in plugins.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. So that way it's installed with everything else that makes Unreal Engine Unreal Engine.
Do I need to set a default project?
That's not necessary because Bridge actually communicates live with whatever instance of Unreal Engine is running. So you can leave that blank. And in fact, in my demo video, I leave it blank. And you can see here that I closed my project and then I reopened my project after installing the plugin. And now this green Megascans plugin is showing up in the toolbar. So you want to make sure that that is showing before you try to actually move your Metahuman into the project. Otherwise, Bridge won't be able to communicate with Unreal Engine open. And that is one other thing to just be aware of, is that Bridge communicates live with Unreal Engine. So you really only want to have one copy open. Like, it's possible to open Launcher over and over again and open up another project and have lots of different projects open at the same time. In fact, right now I could open another project, but I'm using Unreal Engine to be my virtual stage for my video right now. So I'm only running that, and I'm not going to actually copy my Metahuman over. But with your Metahuman project open and you can see this green Megascans button in the toolbar, now you know that this copy of Unreal Engine is ready to receive instructions from Quixel Bridge.
And Nick, I'm a little behind because I was trying to get the Bridge working.
Sure.
Where do I find? I have Bridge. I'm now Bridge has been installed, and I am in the Bridge interface. How do I find my Metahuman?
So this is what Bridge will look like when you run it for the first time, and you want to make sure that you've clicked on the profile to log in.
Yep.
So then on the left-hand panel, there is a Metahumans section, and you can click on that. And that'll open the default Metahumans.
Yep.
Yeah. And once this opens, you'll want to select the My Metahumans.
Which is interesting because it's not opening up. So the reason that I'm confused is it doesn't. Okay, there we go. It doesn't stay open the way yours does. Hold on. I just have little icons. That's why I was confused.
Gotcha.
Okay. On the Mac, it's pretty unstable.
It's a little different, huh?
In case you're wondering, I now have a gray screen for no reason, so it's very slow. So anyway,
yeah.
We'll see how long. We'll see how long I take do this experiment. Let's do it on the Mac.
Is that on the M1, Alex, or is that?
No, it's not. It's not on the M1. It's on it's my iMac, but it's.
I want to try it on the M1. Has anyone tried it on the M1 yet?
Yeah, yeah. On the M1, it's still
laggy.
Not good.
Okay.
Yeah, I might have to go and get a PC. I'll have to get a PC for this to really.
Oh no. Was that?
It's definitely much more streamlined on the PC than on the Mac, but it should work.
Well, I had it like an experiment because I don't use my PC very often, and so I was like, "Oof, it'd be really nice if I could figure out a way to at least play with it on the Mac." But I may be giving up.
Okay.
When I've tried exporting, I run into issues. So when I've requested for it to export, and I don't know where my error is. I've tried to go really slowly through videos, but I get an error that it won't allow to export unless we've got Unreal Engine open, and I do, but I still can't open that. So what do you
So
think?
the things,
what should I
yeah.
look
So the
for?
real important thing to check, number one, then is in your open Unreal Engine project, do you have the Megascans, the green button in the toolbar? Because if that's not there, that means that that copy of Unreal Engine does not have the plugin running. So it doesn't look like your screen has that. So you may want to close that project and open it again so that that Megascans plugin is in there and running.
And what resolution has 8K resolution? Did I miss that memo?
Honestly, the resolution option in Bridge doesn't matter for MetaHumans. It's going to do this. It's going to do its own thing. That I have it set to 2K, but that's really for other functionality of Bridge. This option here of what resolution to download actually doesn't influence what happens with MetaHumans.
Got it.
So unless there's any other questions there.
And when you say
We'll note-
generate, I
yeah.
imagine some of the delay is probably that it has to spin up a server on AWS or whatever it's doing remotely to generate the MetaHuman.
Exactly.
Like
Yeah,
that's actually
because
turn a computer on, wait for it to boot up.
Yeah.
Since we
So-
started, I'm on a Ryzen 9 with 32 gig, and I'm just now generating at 75%. So,
Well, you're not
obviously
generating
it's
it.
their
When
server.
Obviously. They're
Yeah.
generating. It has nothing to do with you because it's
all in the
got to
cloud.
be built from in the cloud and sent to you.
Right. So that's the thing, is that on MetaHuman Creator, the MetaHuman you designed is just a file of parameter values. It doesn't actually exist as a three-dimensional model or as a hair groom or any of those things. It's the first time that you choose to download that those files get generated. So that process for me generally takes about 10 minutes, and that is entirely running on the servers. That's not your computer doing that.
So you could do it on an
And so,
iPad for that matter. I mean, you wouldn't, but I mean, you could do it. I mean, on a very inexpensive computer because it's not. You may not be able to look at it once it downloads, but it's not doing any processing on the computer itself.
Exactly. And so in my demo video, I clicked the download button and I brought up the clock and just kind of fast forwarded through that process. And it took about 10, 12 minutes to get through the process of generating and then downloading the files to get them to download to 100%. And again, I have both the U asset for Unreal Engine selected as well as the Maya files. So it's generating both sets of files for me. It might take less time for you if you only have the U asset. I also ran into a glitch in the current version of Bridge installed on my computer, where after that download got to 100%, it didn't do anything else. Like it just stopped and the download button is enabled again, and it's still saying new here for me. So I actually had to close Bridge and reopen it. And then when I reopened,
I went to a
Bridge,
gray screen. I had to close it. And Unreal, when I tried to launch Unreal on the Mac, it got to 18% and just hung. It was like, I can't go. It's not, you just close it and open it again.
Yeah, one nice thing if you run version 4.27 of Unreal is in that message box, instead of just giving you a percentage, it tells you what it's working on. And so it'll sit at 24%, but it'll also tell you I'm compiling shaders, and it'll have like this countdown. So that's a nice addition to 4.27 over previous versions.
I think
so
I have 4.26.2 right now on it.
Okay. So yeah, so you don't get that little comfort of, oh, at least I can see that you're wasting my time compiling shaders. Yeah, exactly. And in my case, I had to close Bridge and reopen it. And when I reopen now, I have that blue checkbox saying, oh yeah, it's all downloaded. So that's what was happening on my computer for Bridge. And that's how I got around it. And so I kind of point that out in my video. Now with that blue checkbox, instead of having a download button, I have an export button, this blue button for exporting. And that means that I'm finally now, and you can see in my tutorial, I'm like 15 minutes into my video, and I skipped over 10 minutes of generation and download time. So we're really in real time, like 25 minutes in for me,
Right.
that I'm ready to export. And so at that point, I just double checked my export settings one more time, that the plugin was installed. I went ahead and checked that Unreal Engine was showing the green Megascans button. This is kind of like you're sitting on the catapult, the steam's rolling, somebody's going around and checked that all the screws and everything on your plane are all tight and ready to go. Your troubleshooters are both thumbs up, and your shooter is now thumbs up and ready to go. And you can click the export button, and the catapult's going to fire, and you're about to be sent off the deck.
One question from Juan C. Robles in Mexico. He said, "Is there a difference? Is there a different setting to download Metahuman for editing in Blender?"
There is not. So at this stage, there is no separate setting inside Bridge to edit anything with Metahumans in Blender. There is a little bit of a workaround that is possible, that you can bring that Metahuman into Unreal Engine first. And then there are certain aspects of Metahuman that you can export as FBX files from Unreal Engine to manipulate in Blender. So for example, if you wanted to animate your Metahuman in Blender, you can do some of that. But the answer to the question at the moment is, in terms of the presets canned in Bridge, the answer is no.
Well, it looks like I did
So-
something right, because it's importing into Unreal for me now since I've clicked the export button from Metahumans. This is what I'm seeing inside Unreal 4.262. So
Right.
it is
So this is where the
importing Wallace
chaos.
now. Yeah, I'm
This
sure.
is where the fun begins, right? So, in my video, I'm like, 25 minutes, 30 minutes in of my process, and Bridge very cheerfully, very quickly and instantly says, "Hey, exported successfully. We're all good." What's really happened here is Bridge has told the plugin in Unreal Engine, "Hey, there's a file for you to start processing from me." And so in Unreal Engine, the plugin starts doing the work. And so what you'll see here is lots of windows flashing and all. I have audio here, so I don't know how to silence that in Camtasia, but basically a whole bunch of windows will appear. And now I bring up my stopwatch clock so you can see that, okay, we're 20 minutes into the process, real time here. Lots of messages are just going to start coming up. For the beginning of this process, just let them run. The shaders are going to start compiling. There is a message that comes up saying, "Hey, there's 69 changes to the source files. Would you like to import them?" You can go ahead and click the import button and let them import. That in turn is going to generate more messages. Just ride it out. Let them go. In fact, if you click on the import button, you'll start getting messages about normal maps being imported. You don't have to click the OK button. Those messages will automatically fade out on their own. So just let that all happen. And so it was a minute or two into the process where everything finally settled down. There's a Metahuman folder in the project, and these 3 large messages stay up. And what you want to do here is you do want to click the enable missing button on all 3 of these messages. So enable missing project settings, enable missing plugins. Now, when you start doing that, you're going to get another message saying, "Hey, you're going to need to restart." Don't click restart until you've enabled missing on all 3 of those.
And what does enabled
messages.
missing mean?
So what happened is that bringing over the files for the Metahuman needs to activate. For example, there's a plugin that handles the hair groom. I don't need that personally, but the Metahuman that has flowing hair needs the hair groom. There's a number of project settings related to rendering and related to the hair groom and simulations. There's control rig that needs to be enabled. And so basically Unreal Engine, the plugin process of importing all of that, recognizes that this project doesn't have those things enabled yet. So you want to go ahead and click the buttons that enable those things as part of the import process. doing that activation is going to force or require a restart, just like adding the plugin required a restart to actually enable it. So after that's all this enable missing has been clicked, after you've done all three of those, then go ahead and click the restart now. There's a little issue, like if you just clicked one of them and then hit restart, the plugins and the settings and plugins in these panels have not been activated yet. And you can actually break your MetaHuman if you don't click all three of these before you restart. So make sure you click all three and then restart. And at that point, you'll restart your MetaHuman, your project. And that's going to take another minute or two because now it's got new shaders to compile. The plugins need to be activated. So it takes a couple of minutes for us to get through that process and finish. So I just letting all the compile happen. And so it took about 2-3 minutes to get to where that's it. It is now done. And now I've got my MetaHuman folder. I double click that. There's a common folder in there. That's the definition of everything that makes a MetaHuman. And then I had this Glenda folder. That was the name of the MetaHuman I had. I double clicked on that to open up that folder. And in there is this little sphere icon that is BP Glenda. And that is, BP stands for blueprint. And that's Unreal Engine's like master container for complicated assets. And a MetaHuman is a complicated asset. It's got a body, it's got a face, it's got a body rig, a face rig, it's got a hair groom. You know, if it's got a beard, it's got a beard groom. The shoes are separate from the legs, or separate from the pants, or separate from the shirt. All of that stuff is contained in this blueprint. And so as yet another step, I will double click this and open it to basically trigger all of those little assets to get built inside the project. So at this point, real time, from when I started this process of having my MetaHuman ready to transfer, I'm 27 minutes in now. I've double clicked that asset and it's now building all of those components. And it only took a minute or so, but now I see some of the programming structure of that. And then I click on the viewport so that I can open up that MetaHuman. And again, that triggers another process of compiling the shaders. The shaders are just the instructions that say what happens when light hits this thing. Is it blue? Does it bounce off blue? Does it bounce off red? Is it hair? Is it skin? What's going on here? So all of that gets compiled and your MetaHuman will change from a gray kind of terracotta doll to end up getting to be a full color, textured with hair MetaHuman.
Very gray.
Very
That's
gray.
because
Yeah,
that's because that shader hasn't come up yet. Oh, there we go.
Exactly. So right here, and I've got 1,200 shaders to compile. At some point, the shader for that skin got compiled, and now that's working, but it's still working through a few others, and that's finished. So in my particular example, it was 32 minutes total to get to where now this MetaHuman is fully loaded, all the shaders compiled, all the simulations are ready to run, and I can, basically drag drop her into the project. One last step is that there's a setting inside MetaHumans that dictate the level of detail. And the level of detail is called LOD, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. 0 is the highest level of detail. And as the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 increase, that's lower and lower levels of detail. And they're selected automatically by the engine based on how many pixels is this MetaHuman occupying in the screen. So it's not strictly the distance from the camera, it's literally the number of pixels that it's occupying. And one of the settings in that basically switches from stranded hair groom, which is like literally it's like a particle system of strands of hair, to switching to geometry, like kind of like a Lego figure has like a plastic block of hair. And some of the grooms for MetaHumans don't actually have those geometry blocks of hair. And so when you get to lower levels of detail, so she's not occupying enough pixels to be at level of detail 0 or 1, her hair just completely disappears. She turns bald. And so I do show in this how you can configure the level of detail so that it doesn't switch away from level 0, so that you keep that here. So there's, in the right-hand side, there's a LOD sync. And when you click that, over on the right side, you just change this force to LOD. -1 means work on that automatically. So right here, she's on a lower level of detail. And I just type in for forced LOD to 0. And that'll ensure that now she will be at highest detail, regardless of what size she is on the screen.
And one of the things to look at is just how realistic the character is, you know, and the ability. Can you move her around a little bit just so people can just see what it takes to animate her? And we'll talk more about this next week, but.
Yeah, sure. So what I'll do is I'll open that project on my computer here. So I'm opening the Epic launcher, because all through this demo, I've just been scrubbing through my demo video. So I'll go ahead and open that project right now.
I bet you it's going to be epic.
It'll be epic. And what's really nice, though, is because I've gone through the process of all of those compiles, all of those files are now in the project. So this should not take half an hour to open. It should only just take a couple minutes. So we're running through pretty quickly here. Loading this in, almost there. This loading map is the last instruction, actually. So this is loading the level that I already drag dropped her into. So it's going to load in that level, as well as it's going to load her in because she's in that level. So you can see here, it's building the groom. This is the nice thing about 427, is it's telling you what it's doing at each one of those percentage marks. So here she is. She's in here. And I can click on her and tap the F key to fit or frame her into the scene, into the window. And she's there. And at this point, I can start posing her if I'm going to make a storyboard with this character. What I can do is create what's called a level sequence, which brings up the controls for animation. So I'll just right click in my content area, go to animation, and choose level sequence. And I'll not bother with giving that a nice name. Double click it. Usually the sequence window floats around free, like this when you first open it. I like to keep it docked down here with the content browser. You just drag that tab down in here. So now that's here. So in order to manipulate her, I have her selected. That's what the yellow highlight's all about. And I'll add a track for her. Click on plus track, actor to sequencer, and she's right up top because I've got her selected. And we'll get a track for her. And I've got a control rig for her face. Here's her face, and that's control rig, and for her body. So if I want to pose her, I can just use these controls here to see E for rotate. And I'm just going to set this to object space so that I can move her elbow relative to her elbow and maybe make her kind of set up to wave at me.
And you're doing forward kinematics there. Are you able to do inverse as well? Can you just grab onto her hand?
Right. So if I grab her hand, what I'll want to do is make sure we are set for IK for the hand, global controls. So here is arm, FK, IK, switch. So this is her right arm. So arm right, I'm going to activate IK. So now that I have a box, I can hit W for movement. And now I can just kind of move her hand around and the arm follows automatically.
And that's for folks watching. That's the big difference between IK and FK. FK is forward kinematics, meaning I move the shoulder, then the elbow, then the hand to get it into a certain location. Inverse kinematics is running inversely. It's grabbing onto the target, the goal of where you want it. Now, the tricky part of inverse kinematics is that you are allowing the computer to figure out, and really it's big math. Inverse kinematics is big math because it is going, what is the tension of different joints? Which one should move more first as opposed to the other ones? Which ones, where will your body naturally want to go based on that hand position? And so it's more complicated, and oftentimes we do a little bit of both.
Yep. And, so one of the things I deactivated, there's this little option here that's snapping transformations to units of 10. So I deactivate that so that I can move smoothly. But yeah, now I can, with the IK for her arm selected, I'm able to move this around. And that setting only affects that arm. So in this other arm right now, I still have FK on, and I can rotate her face around, or her neck, to tilt her head. So there's some things going on there. Looks like there's a control here for her head overall. There we go. So now she's nodding her head. I could tilt her head to one side. Now she's looking down. What's going on there? And then I could also work on posing her face. So if I scroll up here, I'm just going to collapse the control rig for the body and select the control rig for the face. And we have this control rig for her face. And so if I want to open her jaw, for example, so she's going to say hi. Let me set this to object mode. Hi. She can open her mouth, and we can again give her a little bit of a smile.
This is all a pretty long load in right now, but imagine being able to have, once you go through the process of having 10 or 15 or 20 different people, you could very quickly, throw people in for a storyboard. You might have a couple actors, you make it look a little bit like them, maybe not, try to match them completely, but now you can do storyboards, really fast, and be able to, or pre-visualize an event, or those types of things can be done, relatively quickly. And we haven't, the next week, I think that what we want to do is talk. I mean, Nick, you can let me know, but we'll answer questions from people who try to get this to work. Mine's just still downloading, but answer some of those questions and then talk about basic animation next week. And then, just how to play with them and have people play. It's a little bit of a lab of just having people play with it and ask questions about that process. And then the following week, I think, Nick, were we talking about motion capture at that point?
So yeah, next week, I think that we could start looking at, I think one of the powerful things is that you don't have to use the control rig to pose this face, right? So we could install software like Faceware Studio, and that can use your web camera on your computer to track your own face. So you can make a face, and that face will then be transferred onto the Metahuman. So we could start taking a look at that. In fact, I'll just share that if you want to get started with that, you can go into the Faceware website, facewaretech.com. And there's a little trick. It's a hidden trick that I am allowed to share. So I spoke to the Faceware folks. They said it's okay for me to share with this group that you can get Faceware Studio for 6 months for free. So to do that, you go to their website, click the little hamburger menu, and choose Buy Online. And if you scroll to the bottom here, there's Faceware Studio Personal Learning Edition. It's listed at $2,340. You can click Buy and go ahead and add that to your cart. And then if we go to your shopping cart, say that you have a promo, and in the code, use the word Metahuman, all in capitals. Some of the other codes have been retired, but if you type in Metahuman in all capital letters and apply it, just have to wait for that refresh. Oh, look at that subtotal, $0.
So definitely download that. Go over.
Yeah.
Run, don't walk. Download it.
Can I get that link again?
And we'll talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So this is like the next step in the process. So that the power of this tool. There is another tool that's permanently free. That's for iOS that's called Live Link Face. And so if you have an iOS device, you can certainly download that for free.
Right.
But the powerful thing about Faceware Studio is that it will work from a video file that you've already saved, whereas Live Link Face is really designed to work live from your iOS device.
And
so get this installed.
And live and Faceware Studio will work on Mac and PC.
It only works on PC.
Okay.
Faceware Studio is PC only. So
and the big thing is one thing that we found was that you can do little things like take your iOS device and capture your Faceware doesn't really see resolution over 720, right? I mean, doesn't really notice it.
You can even go like 720 is plenty to get good results. You can go to full HD 1920 by 1080,
but
at that point, more than that
matter.
Just gets you diminishing returns.
And what we did find is that at 1080p with a iPhone, you can capture up to 240 frames a second. Now that may seem like an overkill, but if you do your facial animation at that level, there's just a lot more temporal data so that you can feed that back in even at 30 frames a second to Faceware, but then you can where do you speed it up? Do you speed it up in Faceware, or do you speed it up after you speed the track up later, right?
Exactly. So I'll speed it up ultimately here in the,
because that'll keep all the
sequencer.
That'll keep all the data.
Yep, exactly.
And the big thing here is that when you start filtering the data, so if you run something, I don't know, do they have Butterworth in this?
They do.
So if you do something like a Butterworth filter, which we can talk about at some point, and basically what it's doing is it's averaging out, it's getting rid of spikes. Averaging out at 30 frames a second will take out real data. Averaging out at 240 frames a second will maintain better, and I just know it from Motion Builder. So I was like, do they have that filter? Because we use it in Motion Builder a lot. So anyway, so the high frame rate, like some of the stuff that we would capture would be as high as 480 frames a second, so that we had all that oversampling, that you can, then the filters are more effective. So, and I think we found that to be fairly successful, right, Nick?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a really nice low pass filter. The other suggestion that I'll make is that in the Epic launcher, there is a marketplace tab. And the whole point and power of Previs is to be able to put these characters into scenes. So right now I have this in a completely empty scene, but in Marketplace, you can click on this free button and you'll see a whole host of free assets that are available. So for example, I'm just going to scroll down here on the first page. There's Twin Motion Boats Pack. So as
a note, as we talk here, I just wanted to, the Belfast method is not going to be done here. It's going to be done in a meeting that's already been set up. I put links into Makana and into the chat. I know the guys are starting now. So just we can go a little bit further, Nick, but I just want people to know if they're watching, if they really want to see the Belfast method, that's where that's happening. Go ahead, Nick.
So I think the main thing, one of the things that's really easy to do is click free and then choose Epic Games content, because this is going to be permanently free content from Epic Games. And so, Twin Motion is another product that Epic owns. And so assets from that are being added that are free. So if you want to put your Metahuman on a boat and do previs for a boat, well, the boat exists. There's an amazing car in here in the Salt Flats. You can create a car commercial. There is, a little desert scene that this Mercat is in. You could even filter this if I click on search tags and choose environments. And so now there's a number of environments like a bridge, there's a cave here. So you can download these for free, and they are essentially like little Lego play kits of environments. So there is, if I were to add this to project, I could click on add this and I could choose my Metahuman demo. MH demo should be in here. Oh, it's not in here because I'm going to show all projects and make sure. There we go. We should see MH demo. So I could click on here and I could add this. I'm not going to do that right now, but this would let me add this world to my Metahuman project. And this world exists both as a completed environment, so I could bring my Metahuman into this environment and explore it, or it has essentially a kit of assets. So there's, ruined walls and forest trees and little props and statues and things like that. And I could start building my own level using those. And I could, look at this one to get ideas. And so for previs, all of this exists for me, and I could start working out camera positions and things like that. So this is where things really start getting interesting, because it's not just a generic human in an empty sky floor, but you could very quickly block in a basic environment. You can, maybe later on we'll get into like, I'll do a LiDAR scan with my iPad and be able to rough in an environment that exists in the real world, and then be able to start planning my camera for a future shoot, that kind of thing. So yeah.
That's great. Very cool. Thanks, Nick. Thanks for walking us through it. I think it made, I know we were doing a project together and I didn't really grok how things were getting. So I just said, Nick, here's my login for MetaHumans. Like, I can't figure this out. And so like Nick was just pulling stuff out, and now it's made a lot more sense to me. So I'm going to keep on going down that path. So next week, again, we'll open up with some questions. If anyone has questions about how to get, if they haven't gotten their MetaHuman in, but then we'll start going to the next step. So stay tuned for that. And thanks again, Nick.
Oh, the other thing just to say is that also at some point, one of these weeks in the future, we'll plan a motion capture session. So I have a Vicon mocap studio.
Yeah, just playing around. You just got a Vicon system set up. Yeah. So
yeah,
definitely,
exactly.
What we want to do is make sure that we're ready for it, that we all have, there's a fair number of us have characters that are working, that we figured out how to apply motion capture, that we have some ideas of what we want. And then that'll be great.
Yeah, I think that now is a good time to start thinking about, is there something you would want to do with this Metahuman? And if it's going to be simple actions like cooking at a stove, like what are those actions going to be? And then I can get some students into the stage, and we could do a Zoom session during the week where, you guys can direct, a mocap session, and we'll take that mocap data and make it available to the group. So then, you can make a Metahuman cooking at a stove and go through that whole process.
That's great. Yeah, that'll be amazing. Thanks, Nick, once again. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And we're going to, let's see here. Tony, if you want to go ahead and stop the record, or not stop record, stop YouTube. Just stop the live.